Oh, so you're thinking about moving to Durham. I'm sure you've had this experience where everywhere you turn, everywhere you look, you see Durham has hit another list of best places to live. With big name employers, how close it is to Raleigh, the airport is not even too far. Durham seems like a no-brainer, right? But there are some things that you need to know because everyone doesn't always share the true story. Now, if you're new to me and this YouTube channel, we talk about everything you need to know about Raleigh, North Carolina. But of course, today we're going to be talking about Durham. So make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out on anything. But also, I am a licensed realtor here in North Carolina. So if you do need any assistance with your relocation, you have any questions or anything of that nature, just reach out. However, before you pack and do anything to relocate to Durham, North Carolina, hear the truth about some of the pros of living in the Bull City. But to kick things off, let's first talk about the downtown area and how vibrant it is. Honestly, personally speaking, it's one of those areas that I love to travel to because it is entirely different. I mean, it's not going to be its same feel that you'll get in nearby cities I'll talk about throughout this video. However, it's more of like a uniqueness that you get from it. But I mean, outside of the experience of what it looks like and the atmosphere, it feels like it's also a place where you're going to have a great art scene and food in itself. Not only that, you like to go out, you like to get a different type of feel or exposure to a cocktail lounge or something of that nature. It's there. But it's great that all those things are there, but we all need money to do these sort of things. And the best part about Durham, North Carolina is its growing economy, specifically within the job market as well. So if you're in the industries of biopharm, maybe even medical, and then you have, I can even extend it out to tech, you have a great opportunities there because there are a lot of different employers in this area specifically that will provide that for you. Moving on to the next pro, and this one here is all relatively to who you are and what you're looking for, which is the housing costs. Depending on where you are watching this from the world, you may compare and contrast and see. I will say Durham in comparison to major cities doesn't even equate. Durham is always going to be a little bit less than those areas up until the foreseeable future, right? Even though Raleigh is about a few 30 minutes or so away from it, it still sits a little bit below that aspect as well in terms of median price point. So it's something to really think about. But again, like I said, you may be looking at this like, Ronnie, I don't know if that's a pro for me, and that's more of a con. It's all going to be relatively to where you're watching this from, what you're even looking for, and what is it that you need to do when looking at that Durham, North Carolina market. Because I can't say what's happening in Raleigh is very much so happening in Durham, where a lot of individuals are getting priced out because, again, as you get closer to the downtown area or those more favorable areas, they are going up in price. So something to really think about. So you can decide whether that's a pro or con to you. But moving on to the next one, I talked about this, touched upon it a little bit earlier in the video when I talked about the art scene and the culture. So I won't really say too much about it, but just know it's a high emphasis here. So if you need or you like that sort of community, then I would highly recommend at least checking out Durham, or maybe even just moving to Durham. And if you do plan on moving to Durham, make sure that you see that number that is popping up right there. Make sure to give me a call, shoot me a text, email, day or night, heck, maybe even on the weekends. Always remember one thing, I got your back in this market. So based off of those few pros that we just went over, so far so good, right? Would you agree? Because we have a few more pros before we go ahead and tap into the cons of living in Durham, North Carolina. And since I know you guys want to hear all about the cons, I'll brush upon these next pros really quickly here for you guys. And the first one I'll say is, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the proximity to other cities that you have. So you have Chapel Hill, you really have Raleigh, all nearby you. And of course, whenever you hear the triangle, it's really including all three of those areas, but it's all its own separate area. So please have it to be independent of itself. And then we have the education. So I personally have not gone through any of their education system here in North Carolina at all, so I won't speak too much upon this, but as you guys may know, may hear about, there are major schools, two I should say, it's Duke and North Carolina Central University. If you didn't know, now you know. So those are two good schools that you guys go ahead and check out. However, later in this video, I do have a con about the whole education thing, so we'll get there when we get there. Because now we're going to go ahead and talk about what is there to do outdoors, why recreational. And I don't know if this is your first time here, watching me, listening to me. Many of my videos you've heard North Carolina does a phenomenal job with providing many different states, towns, cities with things to do outdoors. And again, Durham is one of those areas that does have a lot of things that you can do outdoors. To name a few, you'll have Duke Forest, Eno, Falls Lake, Umstead. And if you're like me, you want to go to the mountains, go ahead and drive up north, a little bit further up north to get really that experience being in the mountains. You can go hiking and trails and things like that that they have locally, but it just doesn't hit the same when you go to the mountains. Or you can even go to the beach. Obviously, you're going to be driving quite the distance to get to the beach. So something to keep in mind. But again, you have literally 3 different lifestyles that you can live all within a drive in itself. And the last pro before we touch upon the cons is really how unique these neighborhoods are. You're going to have character. You're not just going to have your typical cookie cutter, right? Of course, depending on what you are looking for or where you even want. So if you do want something more specific and more tailored to your needs, just go ahead and reach out to me and let me know so we can make sure find you that neighborhood that's going to be fulfilling to you, because there are a ton of them all throughout Durham, North Carolina. Because as you may know, many people are moving to Durham, North Carolina, and honestly, they're making the best out of the situation. If there's individuals who are like disappointed in their move or even, kind of steering you away from it, it could be the fact that they're comparing it to a major city. And this is a personal experience I hear all the time, is individuals fail to remember that Durham is not a big metro city. Please, let's leave that out the equation. You can't even compare Durham to these big metro cities because it just doesn't make sense. It's not logical to do such a thing. So if that is something that you truly indeed need, you need a big city type of feel, look elsewhere, please. Don't even bother, because Durham may not be fulfilling to you. And if you still don't want to listen to me, go check it out for yourself. I highly encourage it to go check it out yourself to see if this is even a place that you can even envision yourself residing in. Because I have these conversations way too often, and I hear it where individuals will move in for a year or two and then move right back to where they came from. And it's just like, man, you just put yourself through a lot of trouble. But if you want to avoid that trouble, you see that number that is popping up right there. Make sure to call me, shoot me a text, email, day or night, heck, maybe even on the weekends. Always remember one thing: I got your back in this market. All right. Let's quit with the chatter. Let's crack the code, and let's really go talk about the things that many people don't want you to know about when it comes down to living in Durham, North Carolina. Let's first kick things off with, as you may know, it's a growing area, growing population. They're trying to expand it in so many different ways. So there's going to be a lot of growing pains in it. And I will say the first one is, of course, the traffic. So honestly, Durham is its own beast when it comes to that. I'm sure it'll get fixed, but I really hate traveling to Durham and getting out of it around that time where everyone is getting out of work. Of course, that's expected, but man, can it be really, really backed up quite a few. So something to really think about. And of course, again, something that Raleigh doesn't do well, Durham doesn't have it just as well. I think Durham's is a little bit better because every time I'm in Durham, I see a little bit more, which is the public transportation, the public infrastructure. So something that is a good thing on that end. However, the traffic in terms of the roads, yeah, no, catch me outside. No, I don't want to deal with it. Because if I can avoid it, I will for sure avoid it. And what doesn't help the situation, whether it's on the highway in itself, but it's the construction that's going on as well. Same thing that Raleigh's going through. Again, like I mentioned, they're both expanding. And when you have 2 places expanding, it's going to cause some sort of conflict, right? It's growing pains, essentially, like I mentioned. And I will say the construction is just an added fuel to it. So with construction, you got to expect delays because, again, they're doing whatever they got to do on the road and yada, yada, yada. But just know that stuff exists at the current moment. So moving on to another con that I have to mention, it's the rising cost of living. And I think everywhere in the United States have at least experienced this. But I will say, the more and more videos you see, the more and more time Durham hits the best area, the best place to live, or the best place to raise a family, whatever the case may be, that price just continues to go up and up and up. So definitely keep that in mind. With the popularity, there's definitely going to be a rise in the cost of living. So there you have it. You have a vibrant downtown area, but you got to deal with the traffic. It's like living in Durham could be sort of like a double-edged sword, which side is going to cut you the deepest, because it doesn't stop there. If you're not familiar with down south, North Carolina specifically, be prepared for the summers, especially the humidity that exists. I mean, it could get pretty hot. I will say, I was warned when I first initially moved here 5 years ago, and I had no idea what to expect. When I went through my first summer, Now I knew. This is exactly what it really feels like. So now I know how to prepare myself for the summers. So if you don't know or you want to experience what it's like to in the summers, either just take a trip and see for yourself, because I will say it's definitely not a Debbie Downer. It's not the end of the world, at least for myself. But for many of you guys watching, you may be like, yeah, no, I can't do it. I'm not dealing with it. So you may actually look elsewhere, and that's perfectly fine. But for myself, I can deal with it. And if I can, maybe some of you guys can as well. But again, live your own life as you please. But just know the summers, the humidity, it's no joke. But if you still need additional information, I will highly encourage you to check out a video I did, which is called What You Should Know About Durham, North Carolina Before Moving There. So check that out in case there's something in that video that I probably didn't say here that you can go ahead and catch from over there. But earlier in the video, I said something about the education. I said there's a con there. And the con that I wanted to mention about the education is, with the growing population, the schools are currently going through overcrowding. Seems like Raleigh is going through that as well, and it just trickled down right over to Durham. Although you have great schools on the collegiate level as well, again, that's all that stuff. It's like pros and cons to everything. So it's like I mentioned earlier, it's a double-edged sword. Which one are you going to really live with? Which one's going to cut you the deepest, in essence? And then the last con on this list is the limited entertainment and the nightlife. So yes, it does exist. It's not like it's non-existent, but it's very similar to Raleigh, right? It's how much can you do that for how long? But I will say, I've seen individuals travel from Durham to Raleigh to get a nightlife experience or do whatever. And I've seen the reverse happen. And quite frankly, I've done that myself, where I've traveled to Durham to get a nightlife experience. So it's all going to be depending on what you prefer, what your preferences are. But I think the best part about living in this triangle area, to say the least, is the fact that if you get tired of one, just go travel to the next one and go travel to the next one, right? So you have 3 different fields all within 30 minutes or so of a drive that you can go ahead and get that experience. So it's not entirely the end of the world, but it's definitely a con, because of course, if you don't want to travel, then yeah, I could understand that. So like I've been saying throughout this entire video, Durham gets pretty hot. Not too cold, which is a good thing. It can be pretty boring, but it still gives you a little bit of excitement. So that kind of gives it like a medium city, not a metro. So let's get that out the picture for now. And be sure to don't trap yourself in one of the rural areas in Durham. So with all that being said, do you think Durham is worth it? Let's hear it in the comments below. Because just as much as I enjoy making these videos for you guys, my name is Roney Polynice, and I am a licensed realtor here in North Carolina, and would love nothing more but the opportunity to be able to assist you on your relocation needs. So you see that number that is popping up right there? Make sure to give me a call, shoot me a text, email, day or night, heck, maybe even on the weekends. Always remember one thing: I got your back in this market.